Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to DEF CON 28, Blue Team Village. We are going to start this morning's workshop off with Lennart Koopman from Graylog. He's going to be doing an introduction to the OpenStock CTF tools. Definitely worthwhile listening to. Hope everybody enjoys. I'm going to turn it over to Lennart now to get to the meat and potatoes of it. Thank you.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. First time I'm doing a talk at a remote conference. I think we're all learning new things in this year. I wanted to, before I start with anything else, I just wanted to say thank you to the organizers, not only of DEF CON, but also the organizers of Blue Team Village, because I think that's an amazing job they're all doing. They're doing that every year, but now this year I think it's even harder. And I as a speaker, and I think I was the first in the lineup here, so some things were new to them too. I feel like they did an absolutely fantastic job. So thanks everyone, and I hope everyone has an absolutely fantastic time at DEF CON and at Blue Team Village specifically. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to walk you through a very, very high level overview of what Graylog is. And we're doing that because Graylog is also part of OpenSOC. And OpenSOC, the CTF of the Blue Team Village, if you're competing in it, you're going to be using Graylog a lot. So I was asked if I could give an introduction to it, especially, I think, for everyone, but even a little focused on the people that will be using it during OpenSOC. So I think it's going to be a fantastic overview. If you're new to Graylog, or if you haven't looked at Graylog in a while, or if you're generally interested in open source software, DFIR, log management, whatever. I'm going to walk you through it. Like I said, very high level. And very important, we're going to have a bunch of time for Q&A and questions at the end. That means that if you have any questions, we're going to go through them then, and I'm going to make sure that we leave enough time there. We will also be, when I say we, I mean we Graylog people are going to be around in the Blue Team Village Discord, and there is a Graylog channel there under the sponsors tab, and we'll be around there. We're in multiple time zones. There's a good chance you're gonna meet someone from us over there. I believe we have a little flag at our username or something that shows that we're part of Graylog, and we'll be happy to also answer any kind of questions that you might have, maybe during the CTF or an OpenSOC itself, or maybe in general about Graylog. So we'll be around. We'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Next slide is the agenda. I'm going to be very careful with not moving around too much and not skipping through slides too fast. I hope there's not too large of a delay between what I'm saying and what you're seeing, so that is all in sync, but I'm going to be careful that works. If there are any issues, you can always post in the Discord channel. There are moderators there, and they can make me aware if there's something going massively wrong in any way. The agenda for today, you'll see this here on the left, I think. I only have like 3 real slides, because I want to really show you Graylog as a product. I want to show you what it does. So going to be a big focus on a live demo, but going to go over one slide just real quick about me, then one about Graylog, give you a little bit of background. Then we can take a quick look at the Graylog architecture, not kind of in the level of detail for when you would get ready to deploy this yourself, but just to give you an idea of how the parts of Graylog are kind of coupled together, so that you can, when you use it later, maybe a few things might make a little more sense. I just feel we should take just a minute at the components of Graylog itself. Then, like I said, live demo. We're going to focus on analysis, because I think that's as a user and as an analyst, that's probably the most important part for you, especially if you're part of OpenSOC this year. But we're also going to look at some differences if you're used to other tools. I think that could also be a really important kind of question that you might want to ask. If you are used to another log management tool out there, maybe if you have questions about how Graylog compares to that, from kind of how do I use this? Does Graylog do that? Is there another way of doing that? So you apply the knowledge that you have already, so that you can really apply this in a good way with a new product like Graylog, right? And then, like I said, we're going to have a lot of time for Q&A. For the questions that you have, please use the channel in the Blue Team Village Discord. If you're not in that yet, it's a good moment to just quickly sign up for that. Go to the Blue Team Village Discord, and in Discord you see these categories on the left in your sidebar. There's one that's called the Flamingo Hotel category. It made me miss Las Vegas very much when I saw that this morning. But there's the Flamingo Hotel category, and there's a channel in there that's called Text Workshop Track 1. We are here right now, we're Workshop Track 1, and that's a text channel. So that's where you can post your questions. The moment we're going into the Q&A phase at the end of this, I'm going to go to that channel and we can start to look at your questions and start answering. All right? So, like I said, Text Workshop Track 1. If you get lost somewhere in there after you joined, like I said, there are moderators swarming that place, and they'll be happy to help you and guide you to the right channel. So just ask anywhere, and you should find it. About me, just real quick. Lennart Koopman. My Twitter handle is @_Lennart, Lennart. If you want to follow me on your own risk, you should definitely do that. My background is actually software development and architecture. So started my career as a software developer, and also started the Graylog project in 2009 already. I realized with horror that it's been 11 years already. It's been 11 great years, but 11 years is a pretty long time, and I feel like it was more like, felt like it was more like 3 years. But Graylog as an open source log management product started in 2009, I believe, actually pretty much on the day in 2009, like in early August. We had a nice little celebration at our last party over in Vegas. That was fun. I think there are pictures. I then started a company behind Graylog in 2013. That was after the open source project was showing some commercial interest from people out there. So they asked me, hey, can you give me support? And I said, hey, I don't know how to write an invoice. So that was a good moment to start a company behind it. That was in 2013. I'm currently the CTO over here at Graylog. That's really what I started as too. And I was born and raised in Germany. That's where my accent is coming from, if you could make it up. But I am living in beautiful Houston, Texas now, which is also where one of our offices is. The other offices are in Germany and then also spread out across the United States. I guess I have to say it, we are hiring. If you want to go to graylog.org/careers, there might be something that you could be interested in. That's remote in Germany or the United States. But enough about me. Real quick about Graylog. This would be the moment at a conference or at a physical talk where I would ask who knows about Graylog, and then I would see hands go up or not go up. And then I could adapt this a little to the audience. So I'm just gonna tell you the whole story real quick. It's open source log management. So you send Graylog or instruct Graylog to pull logs from somewhere. It will ingest these logs, it will parse them, and it will make them available for you for searching, analysis, threat hunting, for alerting, and also maybe to filter some out and say, I'm actually not interested in these. Throw them away, route them somewhere else. Really a way to handle logs that are being generated in your environment. The three main use cases for that are dev or ops or DevOps, depending on what you're doing. Definitely very interesting for developers to do root cause analysis, to do monitoring, to do performance monitoring. Maybe when they know that there's an issue on the platform that they need to research or that they need to investigate, they use Graylog to go into the logs and figure out what exactly happened, and to make sure that either it doesn't happen again, or to put an alert on it, or simply to resolve the issue that's causing it. Same for ops. For ops, that could be just classic IT system ops. This could be network operations. See a lot of people using it for that. The fastest growing use case has been for a while now security use cases, which I guess you as the audience here is probably very aware of, which basically means you're using it to keep a track record and a history of everything that is going on in your that means you need to have a system that is able to really ingest all of your logs and to make sense of them, and keep them for long enough so you can run your analysis against it. It will then allow you to set up pretty complex alerting, like you would know it from some SIM systems out there, for example. That's a feature that came out, I think, about a year or even a year and a half ago. New alerting engine that lets you help be a little more proactive about what's going on in your environment. But one of the other really classic use cases is you need to investigate an IP address. You need to investigate some kind of indicator of compromise. Something new came out and there's a new hash. You want to make sure that that specific file has not been written anywhere in your environment in the last 6 months. Let's go in and let's see if that happened or not. And then, of course, classic DFIR, incident response, figuring out if there was an attacker, what that attacker did, all of that fun stuff. And of course, compliance, just having the logs somewhere. I think that is a valid use case. And for that, you need to centralize them. And I think Graylog is a really good choice for that too. Like I said, started in 2009, has really constantly grown since then. Very, very happy to have been a Blue Team Village sponsor really from the beginning. Like I said, absolutely fantastic people. Make sure to watch as much of their content as you can. And next year, when we're hopefully all back in Vegas, make sure to stop by in person. It's always a lot of fun. And Graylog is also part of OpenSOC, the CTF that runs during Blue Team Village that has got so much positive feedback over the last years. Also, of course, extremely happy about that. And like I said, we'll be around to help you with any questions that comes up during your OpenSOC participation. Now, during OpenSOC or during the Blue Team Village, no booth this year. I was always happy to spend the day over there and just chat with people, maybe give out some shirts and some Graylog swag, because that is not happening this year. Make sure to stop by the Graylog channel in the Blue Team Village Discord, because I hear that we will be sending out swag from there. And then, yeah, we'll be there to answer any of your questions. Very important is that OpenSOC is not running the latest version of Graylog yet. They're slightly behind it for some very good reasons. So the demo that I'm going to show you is the latest version. If you see something that's slightly different, definitely reach out to us in the Discord channel, and we'll be happy to give you maybe a workaround or tell you where that is, or if it's simply not there and what else you could do about that. So just keep that in mind. But there's not there are some structural differences about where some elements are, but overall it's pretty much the same and exact. Especially I would say the core ideas and the core principles are of course the same because they simply haven't changed in the last months. And then most importantly, have fun. Stay in touch. It's open source, so if you get interested in this, just start using it, start running it yourself. It's designed for that. And there are many ways to install and run Graylog, especially if you maybe just want to try it out really quick. There's some ways to get something up and running really fast. There's a big community around this that can always help you out. So I want to say, have fun at OpenSOC. I've only heard fantastic things about how much fun it is, so I'm sure you will have fun. And even if you're not participating in it, just download it, give it a try. It's open source. That's what it's all about. So the next slide here promises a live demo. Before we do that, though, I want to send you straight to the docs real quick, so we can look at the. Now I have to find where they are. First link here, architectural considerations, and we will not be detailed. No worries. But I want to show you just really quick the parts that Graylog consists of. If you ever get stuck somewhere with Graylog, always go to docs.graylog.org if you feel like just looking it up yourself. That is up here, docs.graylog.org. That's where all of our documentation lives. And if you can't figure it out there because your use case might not be described in there, then like I said, reach out to us. But that's always a good place to get started. And I'm just using, you won't have to deal with the architecture because the OpenSOC folks are already setting that up for you. But just so you understand it, Graylog really consists of 3 big parts, or 3.5 big parts, I would say. There's Graylog itself, which consists of Graylog server and Graylog web interface, but it's really one system that you're running, or one executable that you're running. And it has 2 dependencies. It connects to MongoDB. It does that to store some state, to store some cluster communication, to store some configuration. That lives in MongoDB. And because there's really not much data, that MongoDB is really, really small in the end. Actually, most people will just run it on the same node as the Graylog server. And that way you can you can almost forget that it's there. You can set it up in a replica set to make it highly available. The Elasticsearch part, though, that's what we're using to store the messages. And so that will, of course, you have to scale that properly, because that gets all the load from searches, and it gets, of course, all the load from actually writing the messages to disk. What happens is, if you connect to the Graylog web interface, it will basically execute API calls against the Graylog server, and it will say, hey, my user of the web interface is trying to search for these messages. And then the server says, yep, I'm going to search for them, queries Elasticsearch, gets the data back, does all its funky Graylog stuff with it, sends it back to the web interface, and the web interface displays it. I'm mentioning that because all the communication between the web interface and the Graylog server is really API calls. There's nothing else happening. All it is, it's just authenticated HTTP REST API calls. That means that you can also automate everything. So if you are getting at a point where you want to write a script to look at data, for example, you can always use the Graylog API. There's an API browser, Graylog, and you can start to write your Python scripts and start to pull that data out of Graylog and do something with it. That's kind of my secret sauce tip for if you're working in OpenSOC, for sure. If you're good at Python or another language, then definitely keep that in mind that you can do that. But overall, Graylog server accepts the messages. You send the messages to the Graylog server, use the web interface to analyze, display, configure, set up alerts, do all of that fun stuff. And then Graylog behind the scenes will do all the management of Elasticsearch. You can define your retention times, all of that. So if you're maybe used to the Elastic stack, where you have to do a lot of stuff in Elasticsearch itself, for Graylog, you really just have to tell Graylog where the Elasticsearch is, and then Graylog takes care of the rest for you, so you don't have to become an Elasticsearch expert. I think that's a very important part. If you want to, you can scroll down here and look at complex look like with multiple nodes, clustering, load balancer in front. I think that is definitely out of scope right now for what you are about to do here, or if you just want to give it a try. But be aware that this is all documented here, and then there's also another setup guide that talks you through that. So should be a good place to get started. All right, so now we're going to the real life demo part. And I'm gonna, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to walk you through, I made some notes here. I'm gonna walk you through 1, 2, 3, 4 areas really. And I wanna spend the most time in the search and analysis. Like I said, I think that's where most of your time will be spent. But I just wanna show you a few other parts of the system, at least real quick, so you're aware that they are there. So I always like to start in the system area, and that is simply because I think that gives you an idea of kind of the philosophy behind Graylog itself. Our idea is that you should have to set up a Graylog in a config file only initially and only once. Basically tell Graylog, where's my MongoDB search, give it some data it needs for to encrypt passwords, to set up TLS on the web interface, kind of this basic setup. And then from there on, we believe that you should be able to do everything from within the web interface. Like I said, those web interface calls are really just API calls. So if you want to use automation, you can just use curl to set up stuff automatically. But during, I would say, after a base setup, everything is configured in Graylog itself, and then Graylog keeps the configuration basically in MongoDB for you. What that means is, I just want to give you a real quick overview. We're going to go into that very deeply, but if we look at our pipelines, for example, that is where all of the message processing of Graylog is happening. This is not some API call where you have to post some cryptic language to. This is not a huge YAML file or JSON configuration. That this is all. No, here we go. Here comes my Linux syslog, and I'm going to say I want to parse some stuff out of it, and you just basically configure Graylog here with a very efficient and small rule language that then says, okay, everything that's Linux syslog, apply this regular expression on it, extract some fields, You'll see here on the right, this is all the functions you can execute on it. You can drop a message, you can check what a message looks like and then define other actions on it. You can thread intel lookups on it. You can run a whois lookup on it, DNS reverse lookup on it, run it against your own lookup tables. You can check if something is in a certain subnet. All of this processing happens, and this is very important. This is a very important thing that you need to understand, especially if you come from other systems. All the processing happens when the message arrives in Graylog. Okay, that means that once a message has been written, that means that that message basically becomes immutable. That means that you cannot change it afterwards. That has some positive side effects and some side effects that you might have to work around a little. What that means most importantly for you, if you're coming from a system that allows you to transform data while you search, Graylog simply won't do that for you, especially not in a way that you can then further search on. Everything that's in Elasticsearch is in Elasticsearch as it is. You can't transform the messages during search time. Very important to keep in mind. Of course, we've built our whole web interface and the processing in a way that you can still do all the good stuff with it. And it also means that we're getting a huge usability and performance hit from that in a good way, as in it's much easier to use. We hear a lot of people who come from these schema on read systems who say, that is useful for a bunch of queries, but overall, just being sure what data you're already looking at and not having to mess with like super complex queries all the time is actually something that in the long term, people really start to like. So just be aware of that. You'll see in the inputs area, you'll see where all your messages are coming in. We've got a whole section here for authentication if you want to connect that to LDAP or an AD. We have API tokens. There's all kinds of authentication mechanisms happening here. And we also, that's the last thing I really want to touch on quick, is we have content packs. So if you want to export any kind of configuration, dashboards, reports, alerts, anything like that, and insert it into a different setup, you can export and import these things here using a feature called content packs. We got outputs. There's a whole index management here, how long you want to keep data. Then after that data has been deleted, you want to archive, you want to close it, you want to delete it. All of that happens here. Is, I think, for you for now, and especially if you're just getting started, not super relevant yet. Just be aware that Graylog has that. Graylog does that for you. So always a good idea to maybe just click around in the system area a little. The other thing I just also really want to touch, so you know that it's there. I am honestly not sure how much of that can be used during a CTF, but know that there is an alerting engine. I have here, this is kind of my small demo setup. I have an alert set up here that alerts me every time there's a high priority IDS alert coming to Graylog. And I have another one, and we can actually look at those. I live in Southeast Texas, so we're pretty good at storms. And I live in the United States, so we're pretty good at not burying our power lines. So that combination will definitely require for you to have some kind of an uninterrupted power supply. So I'm reading the logs from one of my UPSs, sending those into Graylog, and I'm triggering alerts to my iPhone when the power goes out, because I really want to know about that, because maybe if it doesn't come back up within 5 minutes, I'm just going to start to shut down some servers remotely real quick or do something else. So I have an alert set up here. Let me look at this first. Under event definitions, I have a condition set up here called UPS without external power. Click on that. Really what it does is it says, when you find a message that has its status field set to OB discharge, which is the UPS reporting that it is now discharging, which means it has no power. I say when that happens, I don't need aggregations, I don't need groupings, I don't need any other further rules and statistics. The moment that happens, I want to be sent a message. Set this up here on notifications using OpsGenie, which is the system that Graylog can post these alerts to, and it will then send an alert on my phone. I say when that happens, send me a notification, and you can actually see here if I go to my alerts and events and I filter my events by UPS, you will see, because I'm looking here at the last 360 days right now. Usually you would probably look at the last day or so. You'll see now a history of all the days when my UPS was out of power. So you see here, for example, just about almost exactly a month ago, my UPS was without external power, and it did trigger a notification to my phone. Actually, remember. So you can set up these things. You can set up all kinds of conditions under it. You can say only send me this if certain events happen in a certain order. All of that is there. Also, I don't think anything for this demo today, but just something to be aware of and know that it's there if you want to use it. Then we have the streams, and after that, I'm going to go into search and analysis and give you a quick overview of that. But we have the streams here. Streams are basically, think of categorization of messages when they're going into Graylog. They are an important concept for Graylog because, for example, our retention settings are sitting on top of that. So if I say I want to keep my NetFlow logs for 2 days and my domain controller logs for 2 months, I would route them into 2 different streams with a very simple rule, like this one here, for example. If the field Graylog type matches exactly the value NetFlow, then route this into the stream NetFlow. Another one here would be, I think, this one. Yeah, if the message matches the regular expression filter log at the beginning of the string, then route it into my firewall logs. I think here's one for, yeah, this is anything that has a snort process ID in it, route that into my IDS alerts. So you're basically pre-configuring or pre-messages, and you put all kinds of stuff on top of that. Like further processing, extractions, enrichments. You can put access rights on top of that and say only team A is allowed to see my AD controller logs, but my support team is allowed to see, for example, my database debug logs or something like that. Same for retention times. A bunch of concepts in Graylog are streams. I think for you, if you're getting started with this or using it during OpenSOC, I think it's just a great way to make certain types of messages available with one click. Okay, so we're now going into search and analysis. If I wanted to see all my firewall logs, I just click on the firewall stream, and it opens a search page that has the stream selector here on top, already pre-configured to only look at my firewall logs. I can select multiple here, so if I wanted to see all my firewall and all logs, just do that. This thing's going to update. Here we go. And now we also got my NetFlow logs in it. For this example, though, I'm only going to look at my firewall logs. I'm going to take this out again. Every time I make a change to a query, you will see that this is, you get this little yellow icon here, which means, hey, you haven't executed your new search yet. I don't believe this is the case in the version you're going to be playing with. But if you download it fresh, that's definitely going to be the case. So I have to manually execute that one more time. What we're looking at here is our search page. So I think this is what you're going to spend the most time in. So let me walk through kind of the main areas, and then we can run more, maybe execute a search query or two, and then I would say we go into Q&A, and I will ask a moderator to let me know when we run out of time during the Q&A. I think we started a little late, so just let me know what the best time for you as the organizers is. But you have 3 main areas here. You got the search query bar here on top. This is basically where you are selecting what exactly you want to be searching for, in which stream, what query, and also in which time range. That's always the first thing you got to think about. Then you got a sidebar here on the left. I think the important part of this is the fields area that shows you all the fields that are in these messages. So pre-parsed fields in the message. And then, of course, you got the actual result set. So everything you're seeing here, everything under the is your result set. So that is actually everything that Graylog returns for your search query. So let's say I don't want to search in the last 5 minutes. I want to search in the last hour. Okay, let's change that, execute it. Here we go. So now we're looking. You saw that this message count chart here changed. We're now looking at the whole hour. And I think that we can also, I don't think that's in this one yet. But you can also definitely generate a widget that shows you how many messages were found in total. We can do that in just a second, actually. So let's say we're looking at all my firewall logs here. hour. You see that we had a little bit of a spike here. And this is firewall logs are always great because they have a lot of data in it. How much value you actually get out of them is, I think, it's up to you. But it's a great example. And overall, the searches work the same for everything, no matter it's a firewall log, a Windows log, a Linux log, a Amazon API log, anything like that. So if I click on it, you see here, this is the original message that came into Graylog. Very hard to read. If I click on it, you get the details and you get what Graylog is actually returning. Okay? So you see that Graylog here has parsed this out into some fields, like, for example, the destination address and the destination port, header length, which interface it came in, which IP version it was the length of the whole packet that was let through, which protocol it was, and you'll also see here that in this case the action was block. Everything that I'm looking at here on these logs, I'm only sending me the block logs. So I'm not interested in what the firewall let through. I'm only interested in what the firewall actually blocked. Okay. So with all of this, you also see source address and source port. Let's say we only want to see the messages from a certain source, okay, where the source address is set to this value. What I could do is I could go into the search query bar on top here and say source underscore address equals, and then 1356, whatever I want to look for, okay? Much faster is to just simply click on the value. This context menu opens and you say add to query. And it will just build that for you and immediately execute. So what we're now looking at is we're looking at all blocked packets from the last hour where this was the source address. So basically all the packets this source address sent us blocked. Okay, so let's try to get a little bit of a better overview here of what that looked like. So I want to find out was this all TCP or both? So you see we have a field here called protocol. Try to get the top values. I want to see if they're all set. I see something like that. So protocol, show top values. This opens and you see that no, actually this source only sent UDP messages. Okay, let's go a little deeper and say, is this always the same kind of package? Do they all have the same length? Like it's very, very uniform? Same thing, data length, show top values. Here we go. And we see that actually all of these packages are UDP and exactly 278 bytes long. So that looks like we're just blocking the same package over and over and over again. Now, it would be interesting, this setup isn't doing it, but if we would run a whois lookup, that's a built-in lookup table onto this source address, or our GeoIP to see where this is coming from, who owns this IP address, look up the underlying ASN, do all of that stuff. I'm simply not doing that here in this setup, but that's all stuff that you could do. And now let's maybe say, I want to see, no, let's actually go back. I'm going to execute this query again. And what you're going to see is all the data in the result set, because the result set change has now updated. Now we see for the last 1 hour, for everything that was blocked, UDP, TCP, and ICMP. Okay. I'm going to delete this widget here. I want to show you the aggregation builder. That's really the last part I want to show you here. For the search query language, go to docs.graylog.org. There's a whole page that explains the whole search query language for you. I don't want to go into too much detail here because you simply read it up there. It's pretty simple. It's in the end, if you've been using the Elastic Stack, it's the same language. We're just passing it through Elastic Stack. So if you're used to that, same thing. So whenever Graylog creates a widget, that is under the hood, in fact, an aggregation and an aggregation builder. So you will always see this little icon top right of the widget that you can click on and say edit. And now edit is going to show you the aggregation builder. And it has one very important drop-down box, which is the visualization type. Let's say you want to visualize this not as a data table, but as a bar chart, and say, I really want to see 3 bars here with UDP the largest, TCP on second, and then a tiny one for ICMP based on the count, okay? You switch it up, bar chart. Here we go. Save it. I could now make a dashboard out of this, okay? Here we see for the last hour, we mostly blocked UDP stuff. Okay, interesting. You could, of course, if you really wanted to, make it I think they're much harder to read, but Sure, could do that. Graylog is not going to keep you from building weird charts either. So you want to make this a line chart? Sure, not a problem. Can do that. So this is our aggregation builder. You can do sorting. You can add multiple rows. We're going to do that in just 1 second. And you can also add metrics. So let's say I want to get the total bytes that were blocked over the last 1 hour. Okay. So we got the data length field here. Click on that, press chart. That is going to create a new widget. And that widget is basically just the same aggregation builder, but with other predefined values. Okay, you're going to see that in 1 second. Chart. Here we go. So now we got the average data length by timestamp. Click on edit. See, okay, that's our line chart. That's how much data was transferred per minute in this case, on average. But you know what? Let's make this a data table so you see what this looks like under the hood. It's like for each minute, it calculates the average data length. And with this kind of column row structure, you can put that into a bar chart. You can put this into a line chart. But I think what we're really interested in here, we don't want to look at the average data length. We want to look at the sum of the data length. Here we go. That line chart. And now we see how many bytes were blocked in total. I just had to know that this was called sum. If you can do standard deviation, max, min, count, cardinality, average, variance, percentile. You can do all of that stuff with it if you wanted to. Okay. One more thing I want to show you, and then we're going to go into the Q&A. I really want to make sure that you start playing around with aggregation builder, because that one is extremely powerful and will really help you solve these challenges that OpenSOC is going to give you. One more thing I want to show you is, let's say we want to build an aggregation. We say grouped by source address, which protocol was used. Okay, so let's go into the source address, get the top values of that as kind of a start, edit, and we can add multiple rows here. So let's set this to protocol. I want to add a second type of row, which is protocol. It's going to update, and you actually see here that these have all only communicated with UDP or TCP. They're not really doing multiple things. So to explain this a little better, let's build pairs of source address to destination. Take the protocol out, add a new field, destination address. Here we go. So now you see, this is not really what I wanted to show. Let's do it the other way around. Maybe destination address to source address. Here we go. That's what I wanted. So you get this grouping where you say this destination address was reached by these source addresses. And you can go lower and lower and lower as you wish and add more and more stuff. So let's say as the metric, here's the third column, I actually don't want the count. I do actually want the total bytes that were transferred. So the sum of the data length. So without any kind of complex queries, just established that this destination address was hit by this source address with this many bytes over the last hour. Okay. And I can make this a little larger, put this wherever I want. I could now save this as a dashboard, share it with colleagues. There's a whole concept of parameters in there. This is all stuff I don't want to go into too deep today, but that's all stuff that you can do. And you can also really start to combine this in very many different ways. What I can tell you is this might look like it's a pretty good learning curve associated with all these fields in the data table and the visualizations. I would encourage you just to play around with it. The worst thing that can happen is that it shows you either a chart that doesn't make sense or that it shows you an error when something really doesn't compute. Okay, you can't break anything. Just really start to play around with this stuff. Maybe think about something you want to visualize and just see how you would approach that. If you get stuck, go into Discord, and there might be someone who can help you from our team. And also, whenever you feel like, okay, this stops making sense, go back to the data table and look like what underlying data we're really looking at. Once you have multiple dimensions, you can do stack bar charts. You can do all kinds of stuff. So I would encourage you to play around with that. This is really an absolute core idea of what Graylog does and what you could do with it. So with that, I would say that's my demo. And as many minutes as we have left, I would use for Q&A. And like I said, if a moderator could let me know if we're kind of starting to run short on time or when it's time for me to stop, I would say we're going to do 5 minutes. I honestly hope we had a little more time. I'm going to do 5 minutes of Q&A. I'm breaking my promise here a little of having time, but I'm going to promise I'm personally going to be around in that Discord channel for the next day. So everything that's left after these 5 minutes, I'm just going to answer there. And like I said, there are a bunch of other people too, and I hear that there's swag. So Linux on the desktop, I do not know how to hide when you can't see it. So I'm going to go straight into that. Going to go straight onto this one here, and I'm going to try to find some questions. Okay.
Lennart, we have about 2 minutes, if you don't mind.
Okay, understood. Thank you very much.
We just like to move the questions over to the text window or the chat. I'm sorry, if we run out of time. Thank you.
Understood. So I see a few questions here. Given that I skimmed through a lot of them, but I see a question about if there is an OVA. There is. If you go to graylog.org and you go to Get Graylog, big button here. These are all the ways that you can install it. There's Docker images, OVA, virtual appliances. We're integrating with Chef, Puppet, Ansible. And there are Debian and RPM packages to get started really quick. And the documentation is going to guide you through doing that. Okay, let me scroll down a little more here. This is available on Linux. And the best way to set up the environment is described in the documentation. In fact, it only runs on Linux. It does not run on Windows. So I would definitely recommend to run this on Linux. All of the official installation methods are going to be based on Linux for sure. I'm going to pick one more, and then I'm going to stick around in the channel and also in the Graylog channel, please. Let's see if I find one more. There we go. That's a good one. Is there some kind of how-to for reading in a log file written by another application? So you have another server, and there's something running on it that writes a local log file, right? How do I add these into my Graylog now? There are several ways of doing that. Graylog has a concept called sidecar to even remotely manage of collectors. That is, however, not required. You can also just use any kind of open source collector that's out there. I personally recommend FileBeats or NXLog. FileBeats coming from Elastic, they can send straight to our inputs, and you really just tell it, hey, here's a log, and please send me everything that goes into to this Graylog system. It will buffer locally. So look at FileBeat or at NXLog. There's also WinLogBeat and a PacketBeat, and NXLog is also great for reading from Win. And so with that, I will keep my promise and stick around for more questions that are coming in. Follow me on Twitter if you have questions in the long term. That's @_Lennart, LENNART. And I hope you enjoyed that. And I really, really hope that you had an absolutely fantastic time playing OpenSock or trying out Graylog. We're building this for you, for the community in the end. And so let us know if anything doesn't work, if anything doesn't make sense, if you want to improve anything. It's open source. Use it, play it, improve it. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Lennart. Appreciate your time. A great presentation. We'll look forward to hearing more from you guys.